The courtroom had seen arrogance before, but never like this. The air froze mid-breath as Karen Blake, a heavy-set woman dressed head to toe in pink designer knockoffs, slammed her manicured hand on the plaintiff's table and spat out words that would instantly become infamous across the internet. "You're just a useless old lady, Judge Judy. Your time's over. Maybe if you weren't ancient, you'd understand real business." The entire courtroom gasped at once. Even the bailiff, a man who'd seen people curse, cry, and collapse on national television, blinked in stunned disbelief. For a full 2 seconds, nobody moved. Cameras zoomed in on Judge Judy's face, catching that subtle twitch at the corner of her mouth, the kind of expression that meant someone had just signed their own public execution warrant. Karen smirked, crossing her arms, clearly proud of herself for what she thought was a mic drop. Her cheap jewelry clinked as she leaned back in her chair, soaking in the gasps like applause. But that smirk wouldn't last long, because Judge Judy, America's most feared judge, was already preparing a comeback so devastating, so perfectly timed, that it would make Karen Blake the most hated woman on the internet within 24 hours. And when the gavel came down, she would lose $100,000 in the most humiliating way imaginable. But how did we get to this explosive moment? And what could possibly push someone to insult a living legend in her own courtroom? What Judge Judy did next didn't just silence Karen, it broke the internet. The insult still hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. Judge Judy didn't move. She didn't blink. She just stared at Karen Blake, the kind of stare that could melt titanium. The audience held their breath. Even the cameraman stopped adjusting the focus. You could almost hear the whir of the studio lights buzzing as the tension thickened, and then, with a calmness that felt scarier than any shout, Judge Judy spoke. "Mrs. Blake, I've handled murderers with more respect than what you just showed in my courtroom." Her tone wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of authority sharpened over decades. Every word landed like a gavel strike. Karen opened her mouth to fire back, but Judge Judy raised a single finger. The kind of finger that had ended careers, lawsuits, and lies in one gesture. Not another word. The audience froze. Karen's confidence wavered for the first time. She shifted in her chair, suddenly aware that she might have just stepped into a trap she couldn't charm or shout her way out of, because what she didn't know, and what the viewers would soon learn, was that Judge Judy already knew everything about her. Every shady business deal, every fake invoice, every arrogant text she thought was deleted. Judge Judy had been sitting on a stack of evidence for 2 days, waiting for the perfect moment to drop it. And when she did, it wouldn't just end Karen's case. It would end her career, reputation, and bank account, all at once. In just under 20 minutes of televised justice, one arrogant insult would cost Karen Blake $100,000, her business license, and whatever pride she still had left. But before we reach the point where the gavel fell and the internet exploded, let's rewind. Let's see who Karen Blake really was, and why she thought she could humiliate a judge and get away with it. Before the world knew her as the woman who called Judge Judy a useless old lady, Karen Blake was known in her suburban community as Queen Karen, not because she was noble, but because she ruled her neighborhood with gossip, manipulation, and weaponized charm. Karen wasn't born rich. She grew up in a small Ohio town where her mother worked double shifts as a nurse, and her father vanished before she could spell his name. But Karen had one skill that paid off. She could talk her way out of anything. By 22, she'd learned the art of deceit disguised as confidence. She wasn't the smartest in the room, but she made sure everyone thought she was. When she failed a college business law course, she didn't study harder. She flirted with the professor and got her grade changed. When she got fired from her first job for faking client invoices, she blamed her coworker and walked out with a reference letter she forged herself. She wasn't a professional. She was a performer, one who treated life like a stage and everyone else like background actors. Over the years, she climbed her way up the ladder of sleazy success. A little manipulation here, a few fake consulting fees there, and before long she was running her own small financial advisory firm that catered to older clients who didn't read fine print. Her motto? People don't sue if you make them feel stupid enough to blame themselves. It worked. For a while, she made 6 figures off consulting scams that walked the razor edge of legality. If anyone called her out, she'd drown them in jargon, fake smiles, and the threat of her legal team. But her favorite targets were widows and retirees, people too polite or too exhausted to fight back, and she had one unshakable belief. Everyone was beneath her. When Judge Judy's producers reached out for her upcoming case, a small claimsy dispute about a $25,000 consulting contract gone wrong, Karen thought it was her moment to shine. She imagined millions of viewers watching her win against some clueless client who dared to challenge her authority. She bought a new pink suit. She booked a salon appointment. She even told her assistant, "I'll make that old lady look like she doesn't know what she's doing." But Karen had no idea that she'd just booked a one-way ticket to her own televised humiliation, because the clueless client she thought she was suing, he wasn't clueless at all. He was the one person Judge Judy would never let be taken advantage of. And when his story came out, it would turn the entire courtroom and the internet against her. When Michael Reynolds entered the courtroom, he didn't look like someone who could take on a manipulative scam artist. He was soft-spoken, grey at the temples, wearing a modest navy suit that looked like it had seen too many job interviews and funerals. But behind those calm blue eyes was something that no con artist could ever fake: integrity. Michael wasn't just another client. He was a 59-year-old small business owner who had spent 30 years building a family-run furniture workshop from scratch, the kind of man who still wrote thank-you notes by hand and refused to charge a dime more than something was worth. 6 months earlier, when his company hit a rough patch, a friend introduced him to Karen Blake, who claimed she could restructure his finances and triple his profits within 90 days. She spoke with the confidence of a Wall Street guru and the warmth of a preacher's wife. She called him Mr. Reynolds in that syrupy tone that made people drop their guard. She even visited his workshop, pretending to admire the craftsmanship, running her fingers along the polished oak tables and saying, "See, Michael, I can make your business shine the way you make wood shine." Michael believed her. He signed a $25,000 consulting contract, money he had saved for his daughter's college tuition. What did Karen deliver? A 3-page PowerPoint filled with buzzwords she copied from a free online PDF. No marketing, no investors, no growth, just lies. When Michael confronted her, she turned cold. She told him he was too emotional to understand business. Then she sent him an invoice demanding another $75,000 for strategy implementation, a service she never performed. Michael was devastated. He'd been scammed and worse, humiliated for believing in someone who had looked him straight in the eye and lied. He couldn't afford a lawyer, but when a friend told him Judge Judy's team was taking on cases involving financial abuse, he sent an email, not to get revenge, but to get closure. He didn't want fame. He wanted his dignity back. Judge Judy read his letter twice. In it, Michael had written one line that made her blood boil. "I'm not angry about the money. I'm just ashamed that I let someone make me feel small." That was all she needed. Because if there's one thing Judge Judy hates more than arrogance, it's bullies who target the decent. She accepted the case personally, and by the time filming began, she already had her research team quietly collecting every document, every receipt, and every text message that would prove exactly who Karen Blake really was. Karen thought she was walking into a routine TV appearance to win a fake lawsuit, but she had no idea she was walking into a sting operation disguised as entertainment. Because Judge Judy wasn't just about to rule on a contract dispute, she was about to expose a predator on live television. The week before the hearing, Judge Judy's chambers looked more like a detective's office than a TV studio. Stacks of documents covered her desk, bank statements, text messages, and screenshots that painted a story of greed and deceit. Judge Judy leaned back in her chair, reading through Karen Blake's so-called financial consulting contracts. Every page reeked of manipulation, hidden fees, vague promises, clauses that trapped clients into paying for nothing. She smirked. "Classic scam wrapped in business buzzwords," she muttered, flipping another page. This woman's arrogance could fill a courtroom. Her producers had also uncovered something explosive. Karen wasn't just overcharging small business owners. She'd been double billing them through fake shell companies, registered under her cousin's name. Every dollar she collected was being funneled into a secondary account under KBB Advisory. Partners, a company that didn't actually exist. And here's where the real twist came in. That account wasn't even closed. Judge Judy's team had coordinated with the small claims court clerk to verify its transactions. The latest deposit, exactly $100,000, transferred from a different victim just 3 weeks before taping. So she's still doing it, Judy said, eyes narrowing like a hawk spotting prey. She decided right there. This wouldn't be just another televised scolding. This would be an expose, a lesson that would echo far beyond the courtroom. The morning of filming, Judy called her bailiff over and said quietly, "Today, I want every camera ready. When I drop the hammer, the world will see exactly what happens when arrogance meets justice." Meanwhile, Karen was backstage in full performance mode, adjusting her pink blazer, rehearsing snarky lines in the mirror. She even whispered to a producer, "I'm going to make that old lady look like she doesn't know her own show anymore." The producer didn't respond. He just gave her that polite TV smile while texting Judge Judy's assistant a single message. The actress is ready for her execution. By the time Karen walked into the courtroom, the trap was already set. Every document had been pre-verified, every fake invoice double-checked, and the bailiff, he'd been instructed to keep a sealed folder under the bench, one that contained the bombshell evidence that would flip this entire case upside down. Karen had no idea that before the end of the hour, that same folder would cost her $100,000, her business license and her entire reputation. But before the hammer dropped, she still had her moment in the spotlight. And like every self-made villain, she was about to talk herself straight into her own destruction. The double doors swung open, and in walked Karen Blake, as if she were entering the Met Gala instead of a courtroom. She strutted across the floor with the exaggerated sway of someone who'd practiced her victory walk in the mirror. Her hot pink blazer shimmered under the studio lights. Her gold bangles jingled like warning bells, and her oversized designer bag, definitely a knockoff, bumped against her hip like a trophy. Every step screamed, "I own this place." She glanced at the cameras, flashed her teeth in a rehearsed smile, and whispered just loud enough for the audience to hear, "Let's make some TV magic." Michael Reynolds, sitting quietly at the plaintiff's table, didn't even look at her. He was focused on his folder of documents, a photo of his late wife peeking out from between the pages. Karen, of course, noticed and smirked. "Oh, bringing props now? How cute." The audience shifted uncomfortably. Even the bailiff shot her a disapproving glance. But Karen didn't care. She wasn't there for truth or justice. She was there for exposure. As the cameras rolled, she leaned back in her chair, chewing gum like a teenager in detention, glancing at her phone between takes, as if the whole thing were beneath her. When the bailiff announced, "All rise for Judge Judy," Karen barely moved. She stood halfway, rolled her eyes, and muttered, "Finally, the dinosaur arrives." Gasps rippled through the audience. Judge Judy, poised as ever, entered with that calm composure that made her both feared and admired. Her robe swayed like a storm cloud in motion. She didn't look at Karen, not yet. She didn't need to. Judy already knew everything she needed to know. "Be seated," the judge said, her tone sharp enough to slice through Karen's fake confidence. Karen plopped into her seat dramatically, sighing like she was being inconvenienced. She didn't even notice that the cameras were capturing every smirk, every dismissive gesture, every ounce of entitlement dripping off her. Judge Judy flipped through the file, her expression unreadable. "Ms. Blake, you are suing Mr. Reynolds for an additional $75,000 for what you call consulting continuation fees, correct?" Karen perked up, flashing her plastic smile. "That's right, Your Honor. Mr. Reynolds violated the terms of our business contract by prematurely terminating services and damaging my firm's potential revenue streams." Her tone was slick, rehearsed, confident. The kind of false professionalism that sounds impressive until you actually listen. She gestured dramatically as she spoke, as if she were giving a TED talk instead of testifying in court. Judge Judy listened, silent but deadly. Her eyes never left Karen's face. When Karen finally stopped talking, Judy turned to Michael. "Mr. Reynolds, your response?" Michael stood, straightened his tie, and spoke softly but clearly. "Your Honor, I paid Ms. Blake $25,000 for a service that never happened. She provided 3 pages of vague advice, and then demanded another $75,000. I tried to resolve it privately. I sent emails, I called. She told me, and I quote, "That's the price of doing business with a professional." Karen let out a laugh. "I mean, come on, that's just a figure of speech. He's being dramatic." Judge Judy's eyebrow twitched, a small sign that anyone who'd ever watched her show knew meant, "You just made a mistake." "Ms. Blake," Judy said, voice calm but cold. "Are you saying that you think it's appropriate to take a client's money, fail to perform the service, and then demand more?" Karen smiled, completely missing the dagger hidden in the question. "It's called business strategy, Your Honor. Something people your age might not fully understand." The room fell silent again. Judge Judy froze mid-breath. Michael's mouth dropped open. The audience collectively winced like they'd just watched someone step off a cliff. Karen had just insulted Judge Judy's age on national television, and she thought she'd get away with it. But Judy wasn't angry, not yet, because she knew the deeper the arrogance, the sweeter the downfall. And she was just getting started. Karen leaned back, that smirk frozen on her face like it was carved there. The cameras caught every inch of it. The audience didn't even breathe. Judge Judy simply adjusted her glasses and said, quietly, "Please repeat what you just said." "Ms. Blake," Karen doubled down. "I said people your age might not understand modern business. It's not an insult. It's just facts." "I mean, you're what, 70-something?" "Times change." The audience gasped again, louder this time. One woman in the second row muttered, "Oh no, she did not." Judy stayed perfectly still, and that made it worse. The calm before a storm that everyone could feel coming. "Ms. Blake," Judy said, her voice still soft, "you are standing in a courtroom. You will address me as Your Honor, and you will speak with respect." Karen rolled her eyes, lips curling in mock obedience. "Sure, Your Honor. Whatever makes you feel important." Gasps again. Even the bailiff shifted his stance, instinctively taking one small step forward. Judy's head tilted. "You think age makes someone irrelevant, Ms. Blake?" Karen shrugged. "Look, it's not personal. It's just, this show's been on forever. Maybe it's time for new blood. Younger minds. Fresher faces." Her words hung in the air like poison gas. Judy's expression didn't change, but her silence was thunderous. She glanced down at the folder on her bench, the one with Karen's forged contracts, her shell companies, and the list of victims who'd already come forward. "Interesting," Judy said softly. "Because I may be an old lady, but I'm still sharp enough to see through a con when it sits in front of me." Karen laughed. "Con? Please, I'm a professional. You're just a retired judge playing TV." And that was it. That one sentence detonated like a bomb. The audience collectively gasped. Michael Reynolds dropped his pen. The bailiff actually muttered, "Oh, she's done." Judge Judy slowly removed her glasses. Her eyes locked onto Karen's, cold and precise. "A retired judge playing TV, is that what you think?" Karen, somehow still oblivious, smirked again. "That's what everyone thinks, sweetheart." The bailiff took a step forward. Judy raised her hand. "It's fine, Officer Bird, let her talk. I want the world to see exactly who she is." Karen blinked, confused by the calm. She didn't know that this was the point of no return. Judy was letting her dig her own grave, and she was doing it live in 4K. The insult had landed. Now it was time for the evidence to hit back. Because in about 60 seconds, Judge Judy was going to open that hidden folder, and what came out of it would strip every dollar, every lie, and every ounce of arrogance from Karen Blake, until there was nothing left to hide behind. The tension in the room could have cracked glass. Judge Judy didn't speak right away. She just reached under the bench and pulled out the sealed folder the bailiff had kept hidden since the beginning of the trial. The crimson seal across it gleamed under the lights. Karen's smirk faltered for the first time. She leaned forward slightly, squinting, trying to read the label as Judy placed it on the desk. "Ms. Blake," Judy said, a voice steady and quiet, "before I allow you to keep talking, there are a few documents the court needs to review." Karen laughed nervously. "Documents? I already submitted my paperwork weeks ago." Judy tilted her head. "Yes, I'm aware. That's why I asked my producers to verify every single one of your claims. It's funny what turns up when you actually check," the audience murmured. Karen crossed her arms. "This sounds like some kind of setup." Judy raised a single eyebrow. "No, Ms. Blake, it's called investigation. Something you might have learned in your so-called business career. if you ever bothered to read a law book instead of Google search results. She opened the folder and lifted the first sheet, a bank record. The courtroom screens flickered to life, showing a projected copy. "Here," Judy said, tapping the page with a pen, "is your business account under Blake Financial Solutions. Here," she lifted another page, "is another account. KBB Advisory Partners, correct?" Karen froze. "That's a subcontractor. It's normal in finance," Judy smiled faintly, "except the subcontractor doesn't exist. It's a shell account that leads straight back to you." The audience gasped again. Even Michael's jaw dropped. "Now," Judy continued, turning another page, "these deposits from 3 different clients, all on the same date, total $100,000. Care to explain why you charge 3 people for the same exclusive consulting package?" Karen stammered. That's not accurate. Those are separate." Judy cut her off. "Copies of the same template invoice. You didn't even bother changing the file name, Ms. Blake. The metadata shows all 3 were created from the same document, within 5 minutes of each other." Karen's hands started trembling. Her pink nail polish looked cheap now, chipped under the camera lights. She tried to speak, but nothing came out. Judge Judy set the papers down and looked up, expression unreadable. "You came into this courtroom and insulted me. You called me a useless old lady. But it seems this old lady just found 100,000 reasons why your business is about to collapse." A wave of murmurs rippled through the audience. Karen's breathing quickened. The camera zoomed in on her face, the fake confidence replaced by panic. Judy wasn't done. She leaned forward, voice low and sharp. "And that's not all. Because when my team contacted your last 3 clients, they confirmed something interesting. Each of them said you refused refunds and threatened legal action if they complained. You even told one widow that, quote, seniors should read before signing things they don't understand." A man in the audience muttered, "Wow." Karen's jaw tightened. "This is irrelevant." Judy slammed her palm on the desk. The crack echoed through the room. "It's entirely relevant when you profit from deception and think age gives you the right to disrespect others." The shock of it silenced everything. Even the bailiff's shoulders straightened. Then Judy did something no one expected. She looked at Michael. "Mr. Reynolds, would you please stand? There's someone who wants to say something about Ms. Blake's business practices." The courtroom door opened, and in walked a new witness, a woman with silver hair carrying a manila folder, her expression grim. Karen's face drained of color. No, that's impossible. She's not supposed to be here." The audience buzzed with whispers. Judy smiled slightly. "Oh, she's very real, Ms. Blake. And I think she's about to tell this court exactly how you stole her life savings. The Pink Queen's empire was about to implode, live, on camera." The courtroom door closed softly behind the woman. She was tall, poised, dressed in navy blue. Her silver hair was pulled neatly into a bun, her hands steady as she approached the witness stand. The camera zoomed in on her face. "No theatrics, no fear. Just quiet purpose." Judge Judy's tone shifted, respectful now. "Please state your name for the record." "Margaret Hale," she said. "Former client of Miss Karen Blake." Karen's chair screeched against the floor as she half stood. "Objection!" This isn't." Judy raised a hand. "Sit down, Miss Blake." Karen froze. Her voice caught in her throat. Judy continued, "Miss Hale, please proceed." Margaret nodded once. "Your Honor, I hired Miss Blake last year after my husband passed. She promised to help me secure my retirement investments and told me my portfolio could double within 6 months. I trusted her." Her voice cracked slightly. The audience leaned forward, silent. "I gave her $75,000. It was everything I had after selling our home." Karen's lips parted, her breathing shallow. That was a misunderstanding." "No, it wasn't," Margaret said, turning her gaze directly at Karen. "You took my money, never invested a cent, and when I asked for it back, you threatened to sue me for breach of contract. You told me I'd signed away my right to complain." The words hit like body blows. The audience murmured. Michael clenched his jaw. Judge Judy leaned forward. "Do you have documentation to support this, Ms. Hale?" Margaret opened her folder with precision, revealing screenshots, bank statements, and email chains. She handed them to the bailiff, who delivered them to the bench. Judy scanned each page, her expression tightening with every line she read. "Ms. Blake," she said finally, lifting one of the emails. Did you or did you not write this? Karen swallowed hard. Her voice trembled. That's taken out of context, Judy read aloud. If you're too senile to understand the terms of a contract, that's your problem, not mine. The audience collectively gasped. Someone in the back whispered, "Oh, she's done." Karen tried to backpedal. "That was a joke. You called a grieving widow senile," Judy snapped. "You took her life savings and you dared to call it a joke." The courtroom erupted. Gasps, murmurs, a low collective "how could she?" Karen's voice rose in panic. "She's lying. She's just bitter. These people don't understand how business works." Judge Judy's eyes narrowed. "Business? What you do isn't business. It's predation." The word landed like a hammer. Judy turned to the bailiff. "Mr. Bird, please play the video clip." Karen's head snapped up. "What video clip?" The monitors came alive. A hidden camera recording flickered into view. Security footage from a cafe. There was Karen, unmistakable in her pink blazer, sipping coffee with another man. The sound quality was clear. Her voice was unmistakable. "These old clients are gold mines," Karen said, laughing. "They never read the fine print. Half of them don't even understand what they're signing. Easy money." The courtroom went dead silent. Karen's jaw dropped. Her hands flew to her mouth. The audience reacted in shock and disgust. Judge Judy's voice was cold and precise. "You recorded yourself bragging about defrauding senior citizens. You mocked the very people you claim to serve. And then you came into my courtroom and called me a useless old lady." The contrast was brutal. The arrogance, the disrespect, the mockery, all laid bare in one devastating clip. Karen tried to stand, tears welling up. "I didn't mean it like that. It was just a private conversation." "Then it's good that privacy isn't a defense against the truth," Judy shot back. The audience began to clap softly, unable to hold back. Even the cameraman's voice cracked when he whispered, "She's finished." Judge Judy leaned back in her chair, eyes locked on Karen. "You stole from widows, insulted veterans, mocked the elderly, and thought you'd never get caught. But you forgot one thing." Karen blinked rapidly through tears. "What?" "That justice doesn't retire." The line hit like thunder. The crowd exploded, and what came next, the full judicial annihilation, would make that line echo through the internet for years to come. The audience had stopped breathing. Every eye was locked on Judge Judy, every camera trained on her expression, calm, fierce, and filled with the kind of authority that could silence entire nations. Karen Blake sat trembling, her pink blazer looking more like a costume than a symbol of power now. Her hands were shaking, her mascara streaked down her cheeks. The predator had finally become the prey. Judge Judy stacked the papers neatly in front of her, the emails, the fake invoices, the bank transfers, the cafe recording, each one a nail in the coffin of Karen's career. Then she looked up, and her voice turned from quiet precision to a booming, moral thunder that shook the walls. "Miss Blake, you came into this courtroom claiming professionalism, demanding $75,000 for work you never did. But what I see before me isn't a professional. It's a con artist wrapped in designer clothing," the audience murmured. Some clapping before the bailiff signaled for silence. Judy continued, sharper now. "You exploited grief. You targeted the elderly. You used fake contracts to steal $100,000 across multiple accounts. You mocked your victims. You mocked their age. You mocked me." Karen's lips quivered. "Your Honor, please." "No, you'll listen now." Judy's hand struck the bench with a crack that echoed like lightning. The camera zoomed in, capturing the fury in her eyes. "You called me a useless old lady. Well, this useless old lady just found enough evidence to refer you for federal investigation. Because what you've done isn't just unethical, it's criminal." The crowd gasped. Michael Reynolds's head snapped up in disbelief. Margaret Hale covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Tears not of sorrow. "But justice finally served," Judy continued, voice lowering to that terrifyingly quiet tone that meant the storm had reached its eye. "You think age is weakness? Let me educate you. Age is experience. Age is clarity. Age is seeing right through the lies of people like you before you even open your mouth. You think manipulation is intelligence. No, intelligence is knowing that truth always wins. That the people you underestimate, the seniors, the widows, the veterans, are the ones who keep this country's backbone straight." Karen's tears spilled over, her voice trembling. I didn't mean..." You meant every word, Judy snapped. You laughed about stealing from people who trusted you. You bragged about being untouchable. And then you stood here and called me useless. The only useless thing in this room, Ms. Blake, is your moral compass. The audience erupted, not with noise but with energy. It was as if everyone collectively felt the same righteous fury burning through the air. Judge Judy leaned forward, her tone shifting from fury to finality. Here is my ruling. She lifted the gavel, her eyes locked on Karen. You will refund Mr. Reynolds in full $25,000, plus an additional $75,000 in damages for fraud and emotional distress. You will pay restitution to Ms. Hale in the amount of $75,000. That's $100,000 total. Karen's jaw dropped. What? You can't. Oh, I can, Judy said, her voice calm again. And I am. And while you're figuring out how to come up with that money, the footage of you calling seniors easy money will be sent directly to the district attorney's office for review. You'll be facing fraud, elder exploitation, and potentially wire fraud charges. I hope your pink blazer looks good in court, because you'll be seeing a lot more of it. The courtroom exploded. Applause thundered through the audience like a standing ovation at a movie premiere. Even the bailiff cracked a small grin. Karen tried to stand, her voice breaking. Please, Your Honor, I'm sorry. Judge Judy cut her off one last time. Save it. You had your chance to show remorse when you laughed in a widow's face. You don't apologize because you feel guilty. You apologize because you got caught. This court finds for the plaintiff. Case dismissed. The gavel slammed, a sound so sharp it felt like punctuation at the end of an era. Karen's legs buckled. The bailiff caught her as she stumbled, her gold bracelets clinking like broken promises. The camera caught the moment perfectly, the fake glamour collapsing into humiliation. Michael Reynolds exhaled deeply, whispering, "Thank you." Margaret Hale wiped her tears, whispering softly, "Justice." Judge Judy stood, her robe flowing like armor, as she turned to leave the bench. And before she exited, she looked back at Karen one final time and said, "This useless old lady just ended your career. Good luck explaining that to your followers." The audience went wild, but as the credits began to roll and the cameras cut to the aftermath, something unexpected happened. What came next turned this courtroom victory into a viral global movement, the kind of moment that no PR firm, no crisis manager, no influencer spin could ever contain. For a few seconds after Judge Judy's ruling, there was silence, that deep, stunned silence that follows something so perfectly just that the brain needs a moment to register it. And then, the world exploded. The clip of Judge Judy slamming the gavel on Karen Blake's $100,000 loss hit the internet within hours. The thumbnail alone, Karen's tear-streaked face framed by her crumbling pink blazer, was pure viral gold. Within 12 hours it hit 20 million views. Within 48 hours it was everywhere. Hashtags trended across every platform. Hashtag useless old lady. Hashtag justice for Judy. Clips of Judge Judy's iconic line, "This useless old lady just ended your career." Flooded TikTok, Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts. One edit over dramatic orchestral music hit 10 million views by sunrise. Another slowed Judy's words down to cinematic slow motion, while text flashed, "Justice doesn't retire." It became the internet's new battle cry. Reddit threads exploded overnight. On our public freakout, one user wrote, "This might be the most satisfying takedown in courtroom history." And the top comment, with 84,000 upvotes, read, "The moment Judy leaned forward, I could feel Karen's $100,000 evaporate." Meanwhile, Karen's own social media, once filled with filtered selfies and motivational quotes, turned into a digital war zone. Her latest post captioned, "Success is about confidence," to racked up 120,000 comments, and not one of them was supportive. Confidence, you mean fraud? Hey Karen, how's that senile widow doing? Did the useless old lady teach you math yet? Brands she'd previously collaborated with deleted every trace of her endorsements. Her LinkedIn profile vanished overnight. A local news crew even showed up outside her office, only to find it abandoned. The sign for Blake Financial Solutions ripped off the wall. But the justice didn't stop at public humiliation. The court case itself sparked a wave of real-world repercussions. Within a week, the district attorney's office confirmed they were reviewing her case for criminal fraud and elder exploitation. 3 other former clients came forward with identical stories, fake invoices, intimidation emails, and lost savings. One of them, a retired schoolteacher named Helen Morris, told reporters, "She made me feel stupid for asking questions. Judge Judy made me feel human again." That line hit the news cycle hard. Morning talk shows picked it up. Even CNN did a brief segment titled, "TV Justice Goes Real. Judge Judy's Case Sparks National Investigation." Meanwhile, Judge Judy's producers leaned into the moment. They released the full uncut 23-minute courtroom exchange online, and it shattered every viewing record in the show's 25-year history. 200 million views. 40 countries. Even people who'd never watched a single episode were quoting Judy's line at work, at dinner, in memes. One viral tweet summed it up perfectly. She called Judy a useless old lady. Judy called the IRS. Karen tried to make a comeback video, sitting in her car crying about cancel culture and media manipulation. It didn't go well. The top comment? "Maybe next time don't steal from grandmas." Sponsors dropped her. The state froze her assets pending restitution, and her real estate license, yes, her other career side hustle, was revoked. By week's end, she wasn't a finance guru anymore. She was a meme, the human embodiment of consequence. But amid the chaos, something else was happening, something good. Michael Reynolds received thousands of messages of support. Veterans, widows, small business owners, all thanking him for standing up, for not giving in. Someone even set up a GoFundMe to help him rebuild his small business. He donated half of it to a charity that helps elderly fraud victims recover their finances. Margaret Hale became an unlikely hero herself. She started a podcast called Silver Justice, where she interviewed seniors about financial scams and how to fight back. Within 3 months, it had 500,000 listeners, and Judge Judy. Her closing line, "Justice doesn't retire," but became a global slogan. It was printed on mugs, T-shirts, wall posters, even political banners. Late-night hosts quoted it. Law professors dissected it. One university ethics course even titled a lecture after it. And then came the final delicious twist, one that nobody saw coming. 3 weeks after the verdict, TMZ released an update. Karen Blake had filed for bankruptcy. Her assets, including her luxury car, her condo, and that knockoff designer bag, were being repossessed to pay court-ordered restitution. When asked for comment, Judge Judy's team simply said, "The court has spoken, no spin, no mercy, just consequence." But as the world moved on from the spectacle, one thing remained, the lesson. Because what came next wasn't just about Karen's downfall. It was about every con artist, every fraud, every manipulator who thought they were untouchable. What began as a single courtroom humiliation turned into something larger than a viral moment. It became proof that decency, patience, and truth could still win, loudly. By the 3rd week after the verdict, news anchors were calling it the Judy effect. Legislators were quoting the case when they proposed new consumer protection amendments. Financial ethics boards met in emergency sessions, drafting stricter oversight for consultants who preyed on retirees. A headline from the Wall Street Ledger read, "Reality TV judge sparks real-world reform. Seniors get new financial safeguards." Community centers began hosting Know Your Contract workshops. Churches played the viral clip before charity meetings to warn parishioners against scammers. Even high school business teachers showed it in class as a crash course in integrity. Judge Judy herself addressed a veterans organization 1 month later. She didn't talk about ratings or fame. She talked about responsibility. "The law can't stop greed," she said, "but it can shine a light so bright that greed has nowhere left to hide." The crowd of veterans and retirees rose to its feet. They weren't clapping for a celebrity. They were clapping for an idea that fairness still had teeth. Meanwhile, Michael Reynolds went back to his small shop. Customers came from neighboring towns just to shake his hand. He hung a framed photo of Judge Judy behind his counter, with the words "Justice doesn't retire" printed underneath. Margaret Hale's podcast, Silver Justice, inspired state agencies to partner with her. Within 6 months, she was helping law enforcement train officers to recognize elder fraud patterns. She didn't just tell her story. She weaponized it against every predator who thought age made people weak. And Karen Blake? She disappeared from public view, but not from consequence. Her name appeared in legal textbooks under case study ethical collapse. One professor summed it up best. Hubris lost $100,000 that day, but arrogance cost her everything else. For millions watching, the moral was simple yet electrifying. You can't bully your way through integrity. You can't fake compassion forever. And you can't insult experience without being crushed by it. That's why the clip kept circulating, not because of the drama, but because of the clarity. People needed to believe that somewhere, somehow justice still worked. Every repost, every comment, every meme carried the same quiet gratitude. Thank you, Judge Judy. But the story wasn't quite finished, because just as one fraud was destroyed, another was waiting in the wings, one even bolder, one that would test Judy's patience in ways no courtroom ever had. The episode ended, but the energy didn't fade. It spread. Every share, every comment, every new viewer kept the same flame alive. Outrage turned into satisfaction, then into resolve. The camera returned to that final shot. Judge Judy standing at the bench, gavel still in hand, eyes steady, her voice cutting through the applause one last time. Let this be a warning to anyone who mistakes kindness for weakness. Respect isn't earned through money or fear, it's earned through decency. Remember that, and you'll never find yourself in this seat. The screen faded to black, and the narrator's voice took over, calm, cinematic, tinged with that quiet thunder that always follows justice. So tell me, what did you feel when the gavel came down? Relief, rage? Maybe both. Because deep down we all crave the same thing. A world where liars fall, and truth stands tall. The narrator paused just long enough for the words to sink in. If you believe Judge Judy still delivers the kind of justice this world needs, smash that like button until it glows. Drop a justice served in the comments if you think Karen got exactly what she deserved. And don't forget to subscribe, because the next story, a dramatic sting of music, is even more insane. Images flashed across the screen, quick cuts of courtroom chaos. A woman screaming at a bailiff, a man pretending to be paralyzed, until he's caught sprinting through a parking lot. Judge Judy's glare locking on like a laser sight. Next time on True Justice Chronicles, the narrator teased, her fake service dog, a real lawsuit, and a courtroom meltdown so wild even Judy had to take off her glasses. The gavel sound struck once more. Boom. You don't want to miss this.